Captain Elena Vasquez looked out the window of her ship as it docked at the massive space station orbiting the planet Altros. The station was huge, made of bright blue crystal that sparkled in the light of the system's twin suns. This was the heart of the Althari Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Elena's ship, the New Horizon, looked small and dirty next to the beautiful alien vessels around it. Her crew was there to pick up a cargo of processed metals and deliver them to a mining colony 3 systems away. It was boring work, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it kept Earth's true activities hidden from the galaxy's major powers. The Althari who met Elena at the docking bay was tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. His name was something Elena could not pronounce, so she just called him Administrator. The alien looked down at her with the same expression all the advanced species used when dealing with humans. It was a mix of pity and mild annoyance, like looking at a child who had wandered into an adult conversation. "Human Captain," the Administrator said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like wind chimes. "Your cargo is ready. Please ensure your primitive vessel does not damage our equipment during transport." Elena nodded politely. "Of course, Administrator. We'll be very careful." She had been having conversations like this for 15 years. The galaxy's major powers all saw humans the same way. They were useful for jobs that were too dangerous or too boring for advanced species, but they were not worth much respect. Earth was listed in galactic records as a Class C developing world with non-threat status. Humans were the galaxy's janitors, mechanics, cargo haulers. What the galaxy did not know was that every human ship carried hidden sensors that recorded everything they saw. Every repair job on alien technology was studied and copied. Every insult was remembered. For 300 years, humanity had been playing a role while secretly preparing for something much bigger. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Reed sat in a room buried deep beneath the Sahara Desert. The walls were covered with screens showing information from across the galaxy: ship movements, trade routes, military communications, and political discussions. Everything the galaxy's powers thought was secret was being watched by human intelligence. Marcus touched a control panel, and one of the screens zoomed in on Elena's ship at the Althari station. He could see her loading the cargo while Althari workers stood around looking bored. To them, she was just another human doing a simple job. They had no idea that her ship's engines were actually more advanced than their own, or that her hull contained weapon systems that could destroy half the station. "Report from Sector 7, said Lieutenant Amy Foster, walking up to Marcus with a datapad. "The Drakmor are moving 3 battle fleets toward the Outer Rim. Intelligence thinks they're planning another expansion." Marcus nodded. The Drakmor were the galaxy's military bullies. They took what they wanted from weaker species and called it bringing order to the galaxy. Their ships were big and powerful, and they had been the dominant military force for over 1,000 years. "Any word from our colonies in that area?" Marcus asked. "All quiet. The Drakmor don't even know we have settlements out there. Our stealth technology is working perfectly." This was humanity's greatest secret. While the galaxy thought Earth only had a few dozen colonies in nearby systems, humans had actually spread to over 200 worlds. Advanced cloaking technology kept their true settlements hidden from alien sensors. Massive defense platforms were disguised as asteroids or space debris. Military fleets hid in the empty space between star systems, waiting for orders that might never come. The plan had been in motion for centuries. When aliens first contacted Earth, humanity's leaders made a choice. They could try to compete openly with civilizations that had thousands of years head start, or they could be patient and smart. They chose to appear weak while becoming strong. Every human who left Earth was part of the plan. Traders like Elena gathered intelligence. Engineers and mechanics learned alien technology. Diplomats studied political weaknesses. Scientists quietly advanced human knowledge beyond what any alien species suspected. Meanwhile, Earth's government told the galaxy exactly what it wanted to hear. Humans were grateful for the chance to trade with advanced civilizations. They were happy to take the jobs that others did not want. They knew their place in the galactic order and would not cause trouble. Ambassador Lisa Torres represented Earth at the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Harmony Station. She was a small woman with gray hair who always wore simple black suits. The alien representatives barely noticed her when she spoke, which was exactly what she wanted. Earth requests permission to establish a small research station in the Tau Ceti system, she said during a routine council meeting. We wish to study the solar activity patterns for our navigation computers. The request was approved without discussion. None of the major powers cared about an empty HC system on the edge of human space. They had no idea that Tau Ceti contained some of the richest quantum crystal deposits ever discovered, or that humans had been secretly mining them for 20 years. The Galactic Council was made up of 5 major powers. The Althari controlled most of the galaxy's trade with their crystal technology and long-range communication networks. The Keth were a hive mind species that ran the galaxy's manufacturing centers with perfect efficiency. The Drakmor provided military security, though mostly by threatening anyone who opposed them. The gas-breathing Vorthok controlled the fuel production that kept interstellar civilization running. Finally, the ancient Eternals claimed to be the galaxy's wise guides, though they mostly sat in their hidden worlds and gave advice that no one understood. These 5 species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They made all the important decisions, while hundreds of smaller civilizations followed their orders or faced the consequences. It was a system based on the idea that might makes right, and the strong should rule the weak. But the system had a weakness that none of the major powers understood. They had become comfortable and lazy. They expected smaller species to stay in their assigned roles forever. They never imagined that someone might be patient enough to spend centuries preparing for change. As Elena's ship left the Althari station with its cargo, she sent a coded message that would reach Earth in a few days. Another successful intelligence mission completed. Another piece of information added to humanity's growing understanding of galactic civilization. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. Soon it would learn how wrong it had been. The crisis started on a Tuesday morning when War Commander Thax of the Drakmor hegemony made an announcement that changed everything. Standing before the Galactic Council in his massive power armor, the alien warrior delivered an ultimatum that would end 3 centuries of peace. The Drakmor claimed the Tau Ceti system by right of superior force. Thax declared, his mechanical voice echoing through the council chamber. We have discovered valuable quantum crystal deposits there. The primitive. Humans currently squatting in the system have 30 days to evacuate all personnel and equipment. After that time, we will cleanse the system of their presence. Ambassador Lisa Torres sat quietly in our small section of the council chamber. Around her, representatives from the major powers looked bored. This was nothing new. The Drakmor regularly claimed systems from weaker species, and the council always found some legal way to let them do it. The strong took what they wanted while the weak learned to accept their place. But Lisa was not weak, and neither was humanity. She had been waiting 20 years for this moment. Earth's intelligence services had predicted that the Drakmor would eventually discover the quantum crystals at Tau Ceti. They had prepared for this exact situation. Ambassador Torres called Council Speaker Valdris, an ancient eternal whose voice sounded like rustling leaves. Does Earth wish to respond to the Drakmor claim? Lisa stood up slowly. She was a small human woman in a simple black suit, surrounded by aliens who thought of her species as barely worth noticing. But when she spoke, her voice carried a strength that made several council members look up in surprise. Declines the Drakmor ultimatum, she said clearly. Tau Ceti is a human colony, established through legal claim and recognized by galactic law. We have mining rights granted by this very council. The system is ours. War Commander Thax turned his massive armored body toward the human section. His helmet had glowing red sensors where eyes should be, and when he spoke, Lisa could hear the anger in his mechanical voice. Humans are cargo runners and mechanics, Thax said with contempt. You fix our machines and haul our garbage because that is all you are capable of. You will comply with our demand, or we will remove you. The other. Council members murmured among themselves. Some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up for Earth. This was how the galaxy worked. The major powers divided up resources, while smaller species got whatever scraps were left over. Lisa had expected this response. Earth's diplomats had been watching the council for centuries, learning how it really worked behind all the pretty speeches about justice and galactic law. When money and power were involved, the law meant whatever the strong wanted it to mean. Very well, Lisa said, still speaking in the same calm voice. Earth has tried patience. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried to be good neighbors, but we will not be prey. She picked up her datapad and walked toward the exit. As she reached the door, she turned back to face the council one more time. War Commander Thax, you claim humans are only cargo runners and mechanics. You are about to learn how wrong you are. This council has 30 days to reconsider its position. After that, Earth will consider itself no longer bound by galactic law. The council chamber fell silent as Lisa left. Most of the representatives looked confused. Had the human just threatened the Drakmor hegemony? That was impossible? Humans did not threaten anyone. They knew their place. War Commander Thax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The little human thinks her species can fight the Drakmor. This will be amusing. 3 weeks later, the first Drakmor battle fleet arrived at Tau Ceti. War Commander Thax had brought 50 of his best warships, massive vessels bristling with weapons and armor. Each ship was the size of a city and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. It was overwhelming force designed to end the conflict before it could truly begin. The Drakmor expected to find panicked human cargo haulers trying to evacuate their small mining colony. Instead, they found 12 human warships waiting for them in defensive formation around the system's fourth planet. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the human fleet from her flagship, the New Horizon. But this was not the same cargo hauler that had visited alien space stations for 15 years. The ship had dropped its disguise and revealed its true nature. Sleek armor plating covered advanced weapon systems. Hidden sensor arrays tracked every movement of the approaching Drakmor fleet. This is War Commander Thax to human vessels, came the transmission from the lead Drakmor ship. You are outnumbered 4-1. Surrender immediately, and we will. Allow your crews to live as slaves. Lena opened a communication channel to respond. This is Admiral Rebecca Walsh, commanding officer of Earth Defense Force Fleet 7. War Commander Thax, you are violating the sovereign territory of Earth. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The title confused the Drakmor commander. Admiral Earth's Defense Force? These terms did not appear in any galactic database. As far as Drakmor intelligence knew, humans had no military beyond some basic patrol ships for protecting cargo convoys. Human, you are clearly confused, Thax replied. You have 12 small ships. I have 50 battle cruisers. Mathematics is simple, even for your primitive species. Mathematics can be deceiving, Admiral Walsh said calmly. You see 12 ships because that is what we want you to see. Commence Operation Ghostlight. Suddenly, the space around the Drakmor fleet came alive with activity. What had appeared to be empty asteroids opened up like flowers, revealing massive defense platforms loaded with railguns and missile launchers. Stealth fighters that had been invisible to Drakmor sensors dropped their cloaking and appeared in perfect attack formation. Hidden mines activated throughout the system, creating a web of destruction around the invading fleet. The Drakmor had walked into a trap that had been decades in the making. Every piece of intelligence gathered by human traders and mechanics had been used to design this moment. Every weakness in Drakmor tactics had been studied and exploited. War Commander Thax tried to order his fleet into a defensive formation, but it was too late. The humans struck with precision and overwhelming force. Drakmor ships that had seemed invincible were torn apart by weapons they had never seen before. Advanced human technology, hidden for centuries, finally revealed itself. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 43 Drakmor warships had been destroyed and 7 had been captured. Not a single human vessel was lost. War Commander Thax found himself trapped in his damaged command ship, surrounded by human vessels that should not have existed. His communications officer was receiving reports from across Drakmor space. Fleets were appearing everywhere, striking military bases and supply convoys before vanishing back into empty space. Admiral Walsh's face appeared on his main screen. She looked nothing like the timid human cargo captain he had been expecting. "War Commander Thax," she said with a slight smile, "you wanted to see what humans are really capable of. I hope you are paying attention. Tell your government that this is just the beginning. Earth is no longer hiding." The news of the Tau Ceti victory spread across the galaxy in hours. The impossible had happened. The weakest species in galactic civilization had just destroyed the strongest military force. Everything the major powers thought they knew about humanity was wrong. On Earth, President Maria Santos addressed the planet from the hidden command center beneath Geneva. "Citizens of Earth, for 300 years we have prepared for this day. The galaxy has seen our patience as weakness, have mistaken our kindness for submission. Today, that ends. We are no longer the galaxy's servants. We are its protectors." The destruction of the Drakmor battle fleet at Tau Ceti sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. For the first time in over 1,000 years, someone had not just challenged the major powers, but had actually defeated them in open combat. The impossible had become reality, and the established order was crumbling. War Commander Thax barely survived the battle. His flagship limped back to Drakmor space with its hull cracked and half its crew dead. When he reported to the Hegemony Council, the reaction was explosive. The proud Drakmor had never suffered such a humiliating defeat. Their honor demanded immediate and overwhelming revenge. "Mobilize the entire fleet," ordered Supreme War Leader Brutus, his voice shaking with rage. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon in Drakmor space. These humans have declared war on the natural order of the galaxy. We will show them what happens to species that forget their place." But the Drakmor were not the only ones reacting to the news. On the crystal world of Altros Prime, the Althari Council was meeting in emergency session. Their crystalline forms flickered with nervous energy as they discussed this unexpected development. "The humans have been deceiving us for centuries," said High Coordinator Luxin, his voice ringing like distant bells. "Their technology is clearly more advanced than our records indicate. We must reassess their threat level immediately." Hive Mind was also stirring. Across their industrial worlds, millions of worker drones suddenly stopped their tasks and turned their attention to human space. The collective consciousness that controlled their entire species was trying to understand how they had missed such a significant development. Even the ancient Eternals, who claimed to see all possible futures, were confused. Their hidden seers had never predicted that the quiet humans would reveal such power. Something was changing in the galaxy that even their ancient wisdom could not explain. On Earth, General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center that had been hidden beneath the Swiss Alps for over 2 centuries. The massive room was filled with holographic displays showing the position of every human ship and station in the galaxy. What the displays revealed would have shocked any alien observer. Humanity's true fleet was enormous. For every ship the galaxy knew about, there were 10 more hidden in the dark spaces between stars. Advanced stealth technology kept them invisible to alien sensors. Entire battle fleets waited in the cold emptiness of space, ready to strike at targets throughout the galaxy. "Begin Phase 2, General Hayes ordered. "All ghost fleets are authorized to drop their disguises. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really been building." Across 50 star systems, the transformation began. Human cargo ships suddenly revealed themselves as advanced warships. Mining stations activated hidden weapon systems. Asteroid bases that had been operating for decades dropped their camouflage and appeared as massive. Military installations dot. The effect was immediate and terrifying for anyone who had underestimated humanity. In the Vega system, a Drakmor supply convoy found itself surrounded by human warships that had appeared from nowhere. The convoy's escort of 12 battlecruisers was destroyed in minutes by weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics near the Althari trade hub of Crystal Falls. A human fleet emerged from what had appeared to be empty space, the stations. Defensive grid, considered the most advanced in the galaxy, was disabled by electronic warfare systems that the Althari had never seen before. Captain Alina Vasquez, now commanding a proper battle cruiser instead of a disguised cargo hauler, led a strike force against a Keth industrial complex. The hive mind's perfect coordination and efficiency meant nothing when human ships could appear and disappear at will. Striking targets with precision before vanishing back into stealth, the galaxy's intelligence services went into overdrive trying to understand what was happening. How had humans developed such advanced technology without anyone noticing? Where had they gotten the resources to build such a massive fleet? Most importantly, what did they want? The answer came from Secretary General David Park, speaking from Earth's United Nations building. His message was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy, carried by communication networks that the major powers had thought were secure. People of the galaxy, Park began, his voice calm but filled with authority. For 3 centuries, humanity has watched and learned. We have seen how the strong prey upon the weak while calling it civilization. We have watched species destroyed or enslaved because they could not defend themselves. We've been patient, hoping that the galaxy's leaders would choose wisdom over power. That patience has ended, the message continued, outlining humanity's true capabilities and intentions. They had developed faster than light travel that was decades ahead of anything the major powers possessed. Their weapons technology could penetrate any known defense system. Most importantly, they had the industrial capacity to build and maintain fleets that dwarfed anything previously seen. But Park's most shocking revelation was yet to come. The galaxy believes that Earth has a few dozen colonies in nearby systems. The truth is that humanity has spread to over 400 worlds. We have been preparing for this moment since the day we first met alien civilizations. We are not the primitive species you think we are. We are your equals, and we will no longer accept being treated as anything less. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some species saw opportunity in the changing balance of power. Others panicked at the thought of another major power entering galactic politics. The smaller civilizations that had been oppressed by the traditional powers began to whisper about rebellion and independence. The Drakmor response was predictable. Supreme War Leader Brutus assembled the largest battle fleet in their history and began moving toward human space. Over 1,000 warships carrying millions of soldiers set course for Earth itself. If they could destroy humanity's homeworld, they could end this threat before it grew any larger. But the humans were ready for them. Admiral Nina Rodriguez, commanding Earth's home defense fleet, had been preparing for this exact scenario for 20 years. The Sol system was the most heavily defended location in human space, protected by weapons and defenses that had never been tested in real combat. The Drakmor fleet arrived expecting to find a primitive world with basic orbital defenses. Instead, they encountered a fortress system that had been designed by the same minds that had fooled the galaxy for 3 centuries. Hidden platforms throughout the system opened fire with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Stealth fighters launched from bases that the Drakmor sensors could not detect. The asteroids themselves seemed to come alive, revealing themselves as massive weapons platforms. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Drakmor fleet was gone. Supreme War Leader Brutus was dead, his flagship destroyed by a weapon that had simply made it disappear. The mighty Drakmor military, terror of the galaxy for over a millennium, had been broken by a species they had dismissed as primitive cargo haulers. News of the victory spread faster than light across the galaxy. The impossible had happened again. Not only had humans defeated the Drakmor, they had destroyed their entire main battle fleet. The balance of power that had existed for thousands of years was gone forever. On the neutral world of Harmony Station, Ambassador Lisa Torres addressed the Galactic Council for the last time as a representative of a minor power. The chamber was packed with delegates from every known species, all trying to understand what humanity's rise meant for their own future. "The old order is ending," she said simply. "Humanity offers a choice to every species in the galaxy. Join us in building something better, or stand aside while we do it without you. But the days when the strong could prey upon the weak with impunity are over. Earth has awakened, and we will not sleep again." The destruction of the Drakmor home fleet changed everything. What had started as a conflict over mining rights had become a galactic war that threatened to reshape civilization itself. The remaining major powers could no longer pretend that humanity was just another minor species that could be ignored or controlled. High Coordinator Luxon of the Althari Empire stood before the emergency session of the remaining Galactic Council members. His crystalline body flickered with anxious energy as he addressed the crisis that threatened everything they had built. "The humans have destroyed the Drakmor fleet," he said, his voice ringing with disbelief. "Their most advanced warships were torn apart like paper. If they can do this to the Drakmor, what can they do to us?" The Keth representative, a pale humanoid that spoke for the entire hive mind, responded with mechanical precision. "Analysis indicates human technology exceeds our projections by significant margins. Their stealth capabilities render our detection systems useless. Their weapons penetrate our strongest defenses. Recommendation: immediate alliance formation for mutual survival." The ancient Eternal who served as council speaker raised one withered hand. "The future paths are clouded. Our seers cannot penetrate the darkness that surrounds human intentions. This species was hidden from our sight for reasons we do not understand. They represent chaos in the ordered galaxy we have maintained for millennia." The decision was unanimous. The remaining major powers would form a coalition to stop humanity before their influence spread any further. Ivari would provide their advanced shield technology and long-range communications. Keth would contribute their manufacturing capabilities and perfect coordination. The Vorthok would supply fuel and logistical support. Even some of the minor powers joined the alliance, fearing that human dominance would be worse than the current system. Within weeks, the largest military alliance in galactic history was mobilizing. Over 800 warships from different species began gathering at rally points throughout the galaxy. The plan was simple: converge on Kepler Prime, humanity's most important forward base, and destroy it in a single overwhelming attack. Admiral Nina Rodriguez stood in the command center of Kepler Prime, watching the enemy fleet movements on her tactical displays. The base was built into a large asteroid in orbit around a dead world, hidden from casual observation, but well known to galactic intelligence services. It served as humanity's main coordination center for operations in this sector of the galaxy. "There, coming in 3 waves," reported her intelligence officer, Lieutenant Tom Brooks. "First, the Althari shields, then the Keth battle formations. Finally, the Vorthok heavy assault ships. Classic coalition tactics, each species doing what they do best." Admiral Rodriguez smiled grimly. "And that's exactly why they're going to lose. They're still thinking like the old galaxy. They don't understand that the rules have changed." The truth was that Kepler Prime was not just a military base. It was a trap that had been 3 decades in the making. Every alien ship that had ever visited the system had been carefully scanned. Every weakness in coalition tactics had been studied and cataloged. The humans knew exactly how their enemies would attack, because they had been watching them practice the same strategies for centuries. "Begin Operation Mousetrap," Rodriguez ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you corner a human." The coalition fleet arrived at Kepler Prime expecting to find a standard military base defended by perhaps 50 human warships. Intelligence reports indicated that this was the largest human installation in the sector. But even that should not have been enough to stop their overwhelming force. What they found instead was a carefully prepared killing field. The space around Kepler Prime looked empty except for some old battle debris and scattered asteroids. The coalition commanders were suspicious, but their sensors showed nothing unusual. The asteroids were just rock and metal. The debris was exactly what it appeared to be. Admiral Rodriguez waited until the entire enemy fleet was committed to the attack before springing her trap. The debris suddenly came alive, revealing itself as a network of automated defense platforms that had been designed to look like wreckage. The asteroids opened like flowers, exposing massive weapons systems that had been hidden in their cores. But the real surprise came from the dead planet below. What had appeared to be a barren world suddenly revealed itself as one enormous weapon. The entire planetary surface was covered with concealed railgun emplacements and missile launchers. Within seconds, The planet was launching hundreds of projectiles at the Coalition fleet. The Coalition found itself trapped in a crossfire between the hidden platforms, the weaponized asteroids, and the planet-sized gun battery below. Their formations, perfectly designed for conventional space combat, became death traps in the three-dimensional maze of destruction that surrounded them. Commander Zelt of the Althari flagship tried to coordinate a retreat, but it was too late. His shields, the most advanced in the galaxy, were being torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Round him, ships from a dozen different species were dying as human technology proved superior to everything the Coalition could bring to bear. The Keth battle groups, famous for their perfect coordination, found themselves unable to communicate as human electronic warfare systems jammed their hive mind connections. Without their collective consciousness, the individual Keth pilots were helpless against human tactics that seemed to predict their every move. The Vorthok heavy assault ships, built to smash through any defense, discovered that their massive armor was useless against human weapons that could phase through matter itself. One by one, the great battleships that had terrorized smaller species for centuries were reduced to glowing debris. In the middle of the chaos, Admiral Rodriguez's true fleet emerged from hyperspace. 80 human warships, invisible to Coalition, sensors until the moment they attacked, hit the confused enemy forces from an unexpected angle. The Coalition's numerical advantage had become a liability as their large fleet found itself trapped and unable to maneuver. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, the Coalition had lost over 600 ships. Only a handful of vessels escaped to carry news of the disaster back to their home worlds. The most powerful military alliance in galactic history had been destroyed by a force less than a tenth of its size, but the victory at Kepler Prime was about more than military tactics. The battle was broadcast live across the galaxy by human communication networks that the Coalition had not known existed. Every inhabited world watched as the Old Order's greatest champions were defeated by the species they had dismissed as primitive. The effect was immediate and revolutionary. On 1,000 worlds, oppressed species saw the broadcast and realized that the major powers were not invincible. Rebellions began breaking out across the galaxy as smaller civilizations decided that they no longer needed to fear their former masters, the Zentari, who had been enslaved by the Drakmor for 5 centuries, declared their independence and requested human protection. The Novi, whose home world had been strip-mined by Althari corporations, rose up and expelled their alien overseers. Even some of the Keth industrial worlds began showing signs of individual consciousness as their connection to the hive mind weakened. Trade routes that had been controlled by the major powers for millennia suddenly shifted as species chose to deal with humanity. Instead of their traditional rulers, the economic foundations of the old galactic order began crumbling as quickly as its military power on Earth. President Maria Santos watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The plan that had been centuries in the making was working, better than even the most optimistic projections had predicted. Humanity had not just won a war. They had sparked a galactic revolution. Phase 3 is authorized, she announced to the assembled leaders of Earth's government. Begin offering protection to any species that requests it. The galaxy is choosing freedom over fear. Our job now is to make sure they get it. In the ruins of the Coalition fleet, Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the debris field that had once been the galaxy's most powerful military force. The Old Order had tried to stop humanity's rise with overwhelming force, just as they had always done before. But humanity had learned from 3 centuries of careful observation. They knew that true strength came not from the size of your fleet, but from the intelligence with which you used it. The tide of galactic history had turned, and there would be no going back. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. The old powers that had ruled for thousands of years were broken, their fleets destroyed, and their authority shattered. In the void they left behind, something new was being born. President Maria Santos stood before the reformed Galactic Council on Harmony Station. But the chamber looked nothing like it had during the age of the major powers. Representatives from over 300 species filled the seats that had once been reserved for just 5 dominant civilizations. For the first time in galactic history, every intelligent species had an equal voice in their shared future. "Citizens of the galaxy," Santos began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber and beyond, to countless worlds through humanity's communication network. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, not as masters and servants, but as equals working toward a common goal. The age of might makes right is over. Today begins the age of justice and cooperation." In the Althery section, High Coordinator Luxong sat quietly, his crystalline form dim with defeat. The proud Althery Empire had been reduced to their core worlds. Their trade monopolies broken and their influence gone, yet as he listened to the human president speak, he felt something he had not expected. Hope. For the first time in his long life, he was hearing a vision of the galaxy that did not depend on his species being superior to others. The Keth representative, no longer speaking for a unified hive mind, struggled to express individual thoughts. The destruction of their coordination networks had forced each Keth world to develop its own consciousness. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. "The Keth worlds. We wish to contribute to this new order," the representative said, haltingly. "We offer our manufacturing capabilities in service of galactic peace, not galactic oppression." The transformation had not been easy. The collapse of the old order had created chaos on hundreds of worlds as species struggled to adapt to freedom after centuries of domination. Human peacekeeping fleets, clearly marked with blue and white insignia, spread throughout the galaxy to maintain stability during the transition. Admiral Rebecca Walsh commanded one such fleet from her flagship orbiting the former Drakmor, world of Conquest Prime. The planet had been renamed Liberty by its newly freed population. But the change was more than symbolic. Where once massive slave camps had processed resources for the Drakmor war machine, now schools and hospitals were being built with human aid. Status report Walsh requested from her communications officer. "All quiet, Admiral. The local government has everything under control. They're actually ahead of schedule on the reconstruction projects. Turns out, people work a lot harder when they're building their own future instead of someone else's empire." Walsh nodded with satisfaction. This was what victory really looked like. Not conquered worlds flying human flags, but free peoples choosing their own destiny with human protection, ensuring they could make that choice safely. The new Galactic Charter that President Santos was presenting to the Council contained principles that humanity had learned from their own painful history. Every species had the right to self-determination. No civilization could be forced to join or support any government they did not choose. Most importantly, any species that used military force to oppress others would face the combined response of all free worlds. "But what about enforcement?" asked the representative from Vorthan Prime, one of the few Vorthok worlds that had survived the rebellion of their former subjects. "Laws without teeth are just pretty words. How do we know the strong will not simply ignore these rules when it suits them?" Santos smiled and gestured to Admiral Rodriguez, who stepped forward carrying a datapad. "The Galactic Defense Force will ensure compliance with these principles. Every member world will contribute to a peacekeeping fleet under unified human command. Any species that chooses aggression over diplomacy will find themselves facing not just humanity, but the combined might of every free world in the galaxy." The chart Admiral Rodriguez displayed showed the new reality of galactic military power. Human fleets still formed the core of the defense force, but ships from dozens of species now flew alongside them. The former victims of the major powers had proven eager to contribute to a system that protected rather than exploited them. The Zentari had provided their expertise in shield technology, grateful for the freedom humanity had helped them achieve. The Novi contributed their knowledge of asteroid mining, turning their forced labor experience into voluntary cooperation. Even some reformed Drakmor colonies had joined the alliance, their populations choosing peace over the endless warfare their former empire had demanded. Captain Alina Vasquez, now commanding a mixed-species exploration fleet, represented another aspect of the new order. Her crew included Althery navigators, Keth engineers, and human scientists working together on missions that would have been impossible under the old system. They were preparing for humanity's first official expedition beyond the galactic rim, seeking new worlds and new civilizations to welcome into the growing alliance of free peoples. The old galaxy was built on fear, Elena told her crew as they prepared for departure. Fear of the strong, fear of the unknown, fear of change. We're building something new, based on hope. Hope that different species can work together. Hope that strength can be used to protect rather than dominate. Hope that the galaxy can be better than it was. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Reed stood in the same command center where he had spent decades watching and waiting. The screens that had once shown hidden human activities now displayed a galaxy at peace. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been enemies for centuries. Scientific knowledge was shared openly instead of being hoarded by the powerful. The dream of a truly civilized galactic civilization was finally becoming reality. Final report from the Drakmor core worlds announced Lieutenant Amy Foster, who had been promoted to head of galactic intelligence. The last of the military hardliners have surrendered. The new civilian government has officially requested membership in the Galactic Alliance. It was the end of an era. The Drakmor hegemony, terror of the galaxy for over a millennium, was choosing peace over war. Their request for alliance membership would need to be carefully considered, at the very fact they were asking instead of demanding showed how completely the galaxy had changed. The transformation had not been without its critics. Some humans argued that their species should rule the galaxy directly rather than sharing power with former enemies. Some alien species worried that human dominance was just a gentler form of the same oppression they'd always known. But President Santos had faced these concerns head-on. Power corrupts, she had said in a speech that was now taught in schools across hundreds of worlds. The moment we start believing that we know better than other species how they should live their lives, we become the very thing we fought to destroy. Our strength is not in ruling others, but in protecting their right to rule themselves. The new system was not perfect. There were still conflicts between species, still disagreements about resources and territory. But now these disputes were resolved through negotiation and compromise rather than warfare and conquest. The Galactic Court, staffed by judges from every member species, had replaced military might as the final arbiter of justice. Ambassador Lisa Torres, now serving as Earth's first Secretary General of the Galactic Alliance, worked tirelessly to help former enemies learn to trust each other. It was slow work undoing centuries of hatred and suspicion. Progress was being made every day. The economic revolution had been as dramatic as the political one. Free trade between equal partners had created prosperity that reached even the smallest colonies. Technologies that had been jealously guarded by the major powers were now shared freely, leading to innovations that no single species could have achieved alone. On the former Keth manufacturing world of Efficiency Prime, renamed New Harmony, humans and aliens worked side by side in factories that produced goods for the entire galaxy. The rigid hive mind structure had been replaced by voluntary cooperation, and productivity had actually increased as individual creativity was allowed to flourish. The Altheri crystal gardens of Lumina, once restricted to their own species, now welcomed visitors from across the galaxy. The beautiful formations that had been symbols of Altheri superiority became monuments to the unity that was possible when different peoples chose cooperation over competition. As the reformed Galactic Council voted to approve the new charter, representatives from 300 worlds stood together in a show of unity that would have been impossible just a year earlier. The document they approved was more than just a treaty. It was a promise to future generations that the galaxy could be a place where all species could thrive. President Santos signed the charter with a pen made from metal donated by every member world, a symbol of the cooperation that had made this moment possible. Today, we write the first page of a new chapter in galactic history, she said. The story of one species conquering all others, but the story of all species learning to live together as equals. 6 months later, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her exploration ship as it prepared to jump beyond the galactic edge. Behind her, the Milky Way galaxy glowed with the lights of 1 trillion free beings working together toward a common future. Ahead lay the unknown, but for the first time in galactic history, that unknown would be met with hope rather than fear. "All stations report ready, Captain," her Althari navigator announced. "Take us out. Navigation. Let's see what's waiting for us out there." As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Alina reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Earth had hidden its power for 3 centuries, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. When that moment came, humanity had chosen not to become the galaxy's new masters, but to help the galaxy learn to master itself. The quiet planet had finally spoken, and the galaxy had learned to listen. What they built together would echo through the stars for generations to come.